Hi, everybody. Welcome to the last few weeks of the semester. I hope you're holding up okay. You're doing great, and it's almost over. I wanted to go over your final presentation instructions. This is going to be the same if you're in my contemporary art class, Art 107, or if you're in my intro class, Art 100. So these instructions are for both of you. All of you guys have been working on your final project, which relates to your adopted artist. And no matter which option you picked, if you are doing option 1 where you write a research paper or option 2 where you make an artwork, you have to do a final presentation in class. So I wanted to go over what you should do for your final presentation. So the first thing to keep in mind is that it should be around 10 minutes long. It's always going to be different in front of people than you think it is. Like sometimes people talk faster, sometimes they talk slower. So I'm not going to fail you if you're 1 minute over or anything like that. You don't have to be that strict, but aim for about 10, between 8 and 12. I'd say practice it with a timer and just make sure you're in that ballpark and it should be okay. One of the things that you should keep in mind about this is that you're going to be standing behind the podium where I stand, and then that gives you a lot of room to have notes in front of you and to sort of slowly go through index cards or however you want to lay out your presentation. So just keep that kind of format in mind. You'll be practicing at home, but here your thing will be your presentation will be projected on the big screen and you'll be standing behind the podium. It's not as scary as it sounds. When you stand behind that podium, it's like people can only see your head. It feels pretty safe. So if you're nervous, it's not as bad as you think. Your presentation should include a lot of images. I recommend using PowerPoint or something like that. We have PCs in the classroom, so if you're using a Mac program like Keynote, make sure that you save it as a PDF so that it can work for any computer. But most people, I think, have access to PowerPoint. That's probably the easiest way to do it. Include a lot of images. Making a presentation visually interesting, showing lots of different artworks, close-ups of artworks, that's going to help it move along. It's going to help the class stay engaged. Kind of along with that, avoid having lots of text in a slide. Sometimes you'll see a presentation where people have a paragraph of text and they're just basically reading off the slide while you sit and watch them. That's not a great way to present something. It's hard for the audience to read the slide and also listen at the same time. And it's also a little boring, really, to just have someone read to you from slides. So the way I'm doing this now, where I just have one line, that's okay if you're just trying to remind people of a point, maybe a quote from an artist that you like, something like that, but keep the text to a minimum and mostly focus on showing images. So you have two options for your project, and either way, you're going to be doing a presentation, but they'll differ slightly. So if you're doing option 1, which means you're writing a research paper, your presentation is basically going to be a mini version of your research paper. So let's say that you're writing your research paper on, let me think of a topic that somebody is doing. So what if you're doing Chinese landscape painting and your argument in your paper is about the way that Chinese landscape painting was influenced by Confucian philosophy, so the philosophies of Confucius. What you would want to do is tell everybody what your argument is, say, this is what I'm showing in my paper, and then prove it. So show a bunch of different images of Chinese landscape paintings and explain who Confucius was. Maybe show a drawing of him, explain his philosophy, show how it connects to the picture that you're showing. Essentially do like a beginner's version of your research paper. Remember, I'm not really your audience. It's your classroom of peers who really don't know what your research is. So you kind of have to present it from the beginning and really go over the basics for them. So if you're doing a research paper, again, it's a 10-minute presentation, very visual, avoid too much text, do a kind of mini version of your research. One thing to keep in mind if you're having trouble envisioning this, think back to my lectures in class. You know how I'll have a bunch of images from one artist and I don't have text in the slide very often, but instead I'll just talk you through the images and use them to kind of tell a certain story or make a certain point. You basically just want to do what I do in that way, although hopefully you talk slower than me. If you're doing option 2, that's if you're doing an artwork plus your 2-page paper, what you want to do for that is basically do half of your presentation where you're introducing your artist. So again, let's say you're working on Chinese landscape painting. So you would do about 5-minute intro to Chinese landscape painting, show examples, explain what you've learned about it, tell everyone the historical basics. Then the second half, so about 5 minutes at the end of your presentation, you should go ahead and talk about your own artwork. So show in progress images if you can. Take photos showing all the different stages of your painting as you finished it. Explain how it works, explain how you made it. Talk about what you were comparing it to. You could do an image or a slide, where you show your painting you made next to one of the historical images and let us compare them. So basically the second half of your presentation is showing your own artwork, talking about how you made it, talking about what it meant to you. So if you're doing option 2, first half, you present your artist or whoever it is that you adopted and talk about the history, introduce them to everybody. Second half is talking about your own piece. It doesn't have to be exactly 5 minutes to 5 minutes. I don't really care about that as long as you do both things. In terms of actually presenting it in class, the way that it works best is if you bring your presentation file on a flash drive. So just bring a flash drive or a jump drive with the PowerPoint file loaded on there. Make sure you check it first, make sure the file's in good shape. And then right before class starts, I'll just have everybody load them up on the computer so they're just ready to go. A second option is if you're using Google Drive and you want to make your presentation in Google Slides, because that's free, which is great. Before class starts, send me a link to your Google Slides thing. It's really hard to log everybody in on the school computer. So instead, just send me the link and I'll log in and access your presentation. If you don't have presentation software like PowerPoint and you don't know how to use Google Slides, feel free to ask me. I'm happy to sit down with you and show you. It's kind of a free way that you can basically make a PowerPoint presentation, but you don't have to buy the software. It's a little trickier than PowerPoint, but once you get used to it, it's fine. So yes, either bring it on a flash drive or email me the link before class. Those of you who are making artworks, definitely include pictures of the artwork in your presentation. If you just bring in the painting or the drawing, these are really big rooms that I teach in, no one's going to be able to see it well enough. So definitely take photographs of it and put it in the presentation so we can see it on the big screen. If you also want to bring in the actual painting or sculpture or whatever, feel free to do that, but you should have both. Or at least the images in the PowerPoint. And then if you want, you can bring the actual object. I've assigned you presentation days. And if I haven't yet, I will be in the next couple days. So you're only presenting on one day, but you still need to come to all the days. During the presentations when your classmates will be presenting, I'm going to have a review form for you to fill out for one of your classmates. You'll be doing a kind of in-class activity as part of it, and that'll count as the kind of in-class activities that I have as part of your grade. You know how we often do a writing assignment or something in class, so this will count for that. So I want to make sure that all of your classmates have a good audience and have people who are paying attention to what they're doing, and that's part of why I require those days. If you absolutely can't make it for some conceived reason, like you're going out of town, some of you told me that, of course I understand you do lose those points, but we've already talked about that, and it's something that you can kind of balance with other parts of your grade. In terms of the days I assigned you, some of you are on earlier weeks than others. I just split it up randomly. People who are going first during the first day of presentations, I know you're going first. So if you have a slightly harder time being completely polished, maybe the artwork is not quite done, but it's almost done, or maybe the paper is not quite done, I'll be a lot more flexible. I'm aware that you had less time to work on it. So people going first, you get a little more, I cut you a little more slack in terms of how finished it has to be. I think that's all I have to say about it. So good luck putting your presentation together. You can go back and review these guidelines anytime if you need to. Have a great week.